All right. Sean's running right back in. Welcome, everybody, to the post draft edition of Under the Dome. I'm your host, Alan Ulrich, here with my partner, Sean Williams, who just came running from the other room.
I'm getting too old for this running thing.
Yeah. So, Sean, you and I were talking right before we were on the air about this draft class. And, you know, you said what? What was your initial reaction?
My initial reaction in real time was that this was the weakest, or dare I say worst, draft class since we started using Jeff Ireland. I disagreed vehemently at the time with the first pick. As I told you, you're playing just in division this season. You're playing Antonio Brown, Mike Evans, the other kid they got. You're playing Julio. You're playing Calvin Ridley, and now you're playing Pitts twice a year. You're playing DJ Moore twice a year, and you sent the message, in my opinion, that you're completely comfortable with facing these types of teams and these types of receivers. You're completely comfortable playing them with Marshawn Lattimore, PJ Williams, and Patrick Robinson. And I just think that made me sick to my stomach to even consider that. By picking a defensive end in the first round, that's the way that it felt to me. Now, I want to make certain that people understand I am not knocking Peyton Turner in any way whatsoever. He's a great player, great instincts, got a motor that doesn't quit. I watched him play several times in Houston. The only question mark that I had on him was the level of competition that he faced at Houston. Of course, go back a couple of years and the same question marks were surrounding Marcus Davenport. And we took him, and that's beginning to yield dividends now. But, hey, at least the draft was saved when we picked the next Joe Montana, right?
We'll get on that in a second.
I could not even say that with a straight face.
Well, you see what jersey I got on tonight. I'm getting all ready for him. I got my 12 already.
He cannot wear Marcus Colston's number. He can't.
My brother wants to know what. Hang on. What was your RAS score? We have to talk about this. Do you know what the RAS is?
No.
Okay, good, because that's what I wanted to talk about tonight too. Because here we did our mock draft last week. And we talked about, the positions the Saints were interested in. And you brought up the cornerback position, which is a position obviously of need. And Nick Underhill talked a little bit about this on his podcast and on his, blog that he does. And basically, he mentioned that the Saints scouting department, Jeff Ireland, have gone to this. God dang it! I knew I was going to forget what this acronym exactly stood for.
Going into the draft, while you find this, going into the draft, the Saints had, I want to say, 4 cornerbacks on contract. And of those 4, 2 of them were PJ and P. Rob, and I was glad to see that we did address it. And as you said earlier, I really do like the Debo pick, and we've got a few talented guys in the undrafted free agent signings. I'm not saying that it's a lost cause by any stretch of the imagination, but as steep a drop-off as there was at the top of that cornerback class. I would have
Yeah.
liked to have seen it be more of a priority.
Well, I did remember what it is now. I looked it up. It's relative athletic score. And basically what the scouting department has done is they've taken all the measurables of a player and decided that this is an athletic score you can assign a player. What his physical measurables are, his 40 time, his agility, all those things determine what kind of athlete you're bringing in. And it reminds me a little bit of years and years ago when Bill Walsh came in to start drafting for the 49ers and coaching the 49ers. He had that guy Edwards, that sociologist. He's the black guy. He's bald. He's got the goatee. You still see him in the commercial.
Yeah, I know who you're talking about.
He does a commercial now about social awareness and social justice. That must have put on ESPN a half a dozen times during the draft. But anyway, he talked about how
Harry Edwards.
Harry Edwards. Thank you. I couldn't remember his first name. But anyway, when he came in, he was from Stanford. He came in, and Bill Walsh knew him from Stanford and said, okay, these are the kind of players I want on this team. And he put up a transparency, because this was back when you had the old projector, overhead projector. Put up a transparency, and he graded people based on personality, which of course is what he learned from, the father of football, Paul Brown, who gave his own version of an IQ test to his players because he wanted to show it was more than just physical, it was an intellectual game. So
the same thing that you saw in the movie Miracle, the tests that the hockey players had to take.
Exactly. So, it was about competitiveness, leadership skills, all those kind of things, where you're trying to measure the mental and competitive acumen of players. Well, football has gotten really good at that part of it, and they kind of forgot about the physical part, and you look at a guy like Mike Ditka, the kind of players he was trying to draft all the time. He wanted to draft those Grabowskis, as he called them.
Yeah.
Guys who overachieved in college football. They weren't the most talented, but they overachieved in college football because he felt like those are the guys who are going to be most competitive for him. Well, of course, if you overachieve in college football, when they take that next step up in the NFL, you physically can't do it because you had to overachieve just to play at the collegiate level. So that's why Ditka's picks, for the most part, bombed. Well, we're taking this almost to the next level now with this relative athletic score that Ireland has now and his scouts now all use. You measure their physical skills along with their athletic ability, and you grade them accordingly. And a guy like Peyton Turner scored very highly, even though he was knocked by most draft books, like this one here, and Mike Detillier has him as the 9th best player, because they're looking at the level of competition, like you said.
Yeah.
And saying, okay, he may be a big fish in a small pond, but he's not the best. He didn't play against elite talent till the Senior Bowl, and he had a good Senior Bowl week compared to a guy like Kwity Paye of Michigan, or Jaleen Phillips of Miami of Florida. Those kind of guys. But for the Saints, okay, I was going to throw this up here. But for the Saints, we're going to talk about the receivers in a minute, Calvin. They want a certain kind of player, and Turner kind of fits that role. He's 6'5", almost 6'6". He's, instead of being a tweener, the undersized tweener, kind of linebacker, defensive end hybrid that a lot of teams like to go to now, they like having big guys. He's almost like a Cam Jordan physically, a Cam Jordan clone.
The film on him, he looks like he has the longest arms I've ever seen.
Yeah.
And he knows he's very good at using that to create space.
Well, I was told to watch the University of Houston against Tulane game, and I did watch it. And you put on that tape and watch Turner, number 98. And one person said it's Godzilla versus Tokyo. I equated it
Tokyo
to
lost.
Tokyo lost bad. Yes. I equated it to a grown, like Peyton Manning, a grown man playing with kids. And just, I mean, he was throwing people around like rag dolls. He is destroying people. You look, if you thought if that was the only game you watched, you would have said, why wasn't this guy picked number 1 overall? Because as you said off the air, he was a big fish in a little pond.
Yeah. But there too, I want everyone to understand I am not discounting Peyton Turner in any way, shape, form, or fashion. I just don't believe that was the biggest position of need. And with a first round draft pick, you have got to take somebody that's going to be an impact player for you in the coming season. It's not a project. It's not a let's do this and see what happens sort of deal. I just feel like cornerback should have been cornerback or linebacker. You want to try to exercise that 28th pick to get a difference maker for your team. And those are two positions that we are woefully undermanned at.
And I get that. And I thought that the Cleveland Browns kind of had the Saints draft board, and they were using the Saints draft board to make their selections because it seemed like the Browns were grabbing the people the Saints wanted right in front of them. Yeah. And I don't know if you saw this. Michael Lombardi came out and said that the Saints really were. The news came out draft day that Thursday. The Saints were desperately trying to trade up, and they wanted to trade up into the upper teens, if not 10. Okay, and they didn't. No one took the bait. The Vikings traded down, but only to 14, and they weren't going to trade down again.
And how about Dallas trading with was it Philly?
I think it was.
Let's trade in division and let you have a higher pick than what we're going to have. Morons.
Oh, my brother remembers that. We made a funny film. I forgot. It was for my media class. And yeah, I did push him into a puddle. I forgot about that. He was in 8th grade. I was a senior, and it was supposed to be some guy. It was supposed to be a loser, and he was trying to do stuff and one of the things that I think I pushed in one of the jokes, I pushed him in a puddle. It was a fun day.
Poor Danny.
Yeah, well, that's what happens to you.
So mistreated.
So here was my thinking. I thought when Greg Newsome came off the board, I think that's when Peyton Turner got kind of pushed to the front. I get what you're saying, and I agree with you from the standpoint of you needed to get a corner or a top linebacker, and I'll talk about that in a second. But I think for the defensive end, it does make sense because, as Calvin said, he can play defensive tackle and defensive end because he did play defensive tackle at University of Houston his first couple of years. Mm-hmm. He played 1 year defensive end. He's got the size to do it. The old NASCAR package that the Saints used to like to run. But more importantly, you have Cam Jordan coming off a down year. He's entering his 11th season, 32 years old. So you do need to start grooming his replacement. And then they picked up the option on Marcus Davenport, the 5th-year option on Davenport. But Davenport's been battling injuries every year. So you lost your number one backup as a defensive end. Your top backup right now is Carl Ganderson. Now, Ganderson could turn out to be a good player, but you're risking a lot of an undrafted free agent to be your third defensive end, and the Saints like to rotate their defensive ends a lot.
Yeah.
So I get the Turner pick, but I also understand you didn't have to go grab him in the first round, but they felt like this guy wasn't going to be there in the second because you're picking at 28, then your next pick is at 60. And I don't think they had enough trouble moving up in the first round. I think they were worried they weren't going to be able to move up in the second round, and Turner was going to go to a team like the Cowboys, or the Broncos, or someone like that.
And see, that's completely opposite of the way that I felt, because I honestly, I believed that Peyton Turner would have been there at number 60. I really do.
Yeah. Yeah, we're going to talk about Ian Book in a minute. So we go to the second round, and this was the pick I think that really set people off. Other than the fourth round quarterback, the second round pick I think really set people off because the Saints went with an Ohio State linebacker, but not the Ohio State linebacker that they thought they would go with, Baron Browning. They went with Pete Werner, who a lot of people felt like he was a third round prospect, and they took him in the second. And then they were pissed off that the Saints didn't take either the Notre Dame linebacker, Jeremiah JOK, as I kept seeing over and over and over. And Allison's like, who the hell is JOK? But they didn't take the Notre Dame linebacker, nor did they take the LSU linebacker, which you knew that was going to happen. They didn't take Jabril Cox. Now, what did you think of Werner?
As a player, I think he's good. I don't know if I would rate him as second round good. I'm interested to see what he develops into. I really am.
My son. There's some people who did want him because he was the more decorated, more talented guy compared to Werner.
Like you suggested off the air, I do believe that at this point now he's somewhat undersized to be a middle linebacker in the NFL.
Mm-hmm.
But you know that coming from Ohio State, he's going to be seasoned and he's going to be a smart player. So I think the upside on that pick is probably a lot higher than what most people think.
Well, one of the things they talked about during the draft, and of course we find out after the draft was over with, they said during the draft that the teams had a hard time getting a hold of the medical reports on players. And some of them would get into reports that day, the day of the draft. So they pretty much had set their board based on the medical information, the old medical information they had. We found out today and yesterday that Jeremiah JOK, let's just call him JOK because I'm going to butcher this last name, had a heart condition. And I said after Nick Fairley, the Nick Fairley experiment, where his heart condition, of course, it was years later, but it's when the Saints paid him after a good year. I'm pretty sure the Saints took him off the board after that, any kind of heart condition, because none of the players they took have any kind of health conditions.
And that's somewhat of a first.
Yeah.
Because normally we take somebody like Haoli Kikaha, who had three blown knees in 4 years of college.
Yeah. We take what was he in 2014? I think we took a safety, a linebacker, and one other player that were combined. They had one good leg among the three of them.
Yeah.
Chase Lyman, I talked about him when we went through some of the draft picks. Chase Lyman had an ACL from a cadaver. Trying to get him to come back. So they didn't take any of those players. And that was the other problem with Jabril Cox. He had shoulder surgery. So they had no idea. The story was he may not even be ready for the beginning of the season. So the story was, how far along was he on his shoulder surgery? And what was that? Okay. So, they passed on both those guys and took Werner. I think Werner is going to be I think he's going to be better than people giving credit for. Some of them are saying he's, Alex Anzalone 2.0. Dat Boy Wolf called him Scott Shanley. Some of the derogatory terms about a white linebacker, and it was kind of disturbing to see that on Twitter, but I'm used to it by now.
Yeah.
But
see, I think that something that's getting lost when we're evaluating all these picks by all these teams is exactly how many of these top tier talent players opted out of the season last year. So you're gambling on a player that hasn't played in coming up on a year and a half, 2 years now.
Yeah, exactly. So, and Calvin's right. Anzalone had shoulder problems in college. He could cover, but and Werner's not that kind of guy. Werner's going to give you all he's got. He's a smart, instinctive player. He can shed blocks, and he can come in. Now, he got exposed by Alabama, but, Alabama exposed a lot of people. And you're looking at a team, they had 7 first-round picks, 6 first-round picks.
Yeah.
Yeah, so if you play badly against Alabama in some regards, you're kind of forgiven a bit, because it's Alabama. That team was loaded, and some of those players.
Do you think that there's any truth to the rumors that are coming out now about us wanting to trade up in front of New England to get Mac Jones?
Michael Lombardi says it was true. And
that was my nightmare. When I was the happiest camper when Mac Jones came off the board.
Well, it's funny. I said, as pissed off as people were about taking, Turner in the first round, if the Saints traded up and say they traded up to 13 or 12, Mac Jones is on the board, but so is Greg Newsome, all the top corners.
It would have been Mac Jones.
Caleb Fairley. You've have all these you have most of the top linebackers, most of the top receivers are still on the board. All these players on the board, and the Saints give up, say, their first this year, their first next year, maybe their second this year, or their 2/3 and stuff, and take Mac Jones or took Mac Jones. I think Saints Twitter would have been
melted down.
You wouldn't have been able to get on Twitter. They would have shut the internet down. There'd have been so much.
Yeah. Venom.
Yes. So, I was too, Calvin. He was happy when Caleb Fairley came off the board. Back surgery scares the hell out of me.
Yes.
There's certain injuries I don't like taking players at. I don't like taking linebackers coming off of back or knee surgery. I don't like taking running backs or shoulder. I don't like taking running backs that come off of knee injuries. Yeah. I don't like taking receivers coming off of
ankles.
Well, ankles or backs. Back injury, offensive linemen with back injuries. You don't want to take any of those guys. You just kind of cross them off the board.
That's too much of a gamble.
Yeah, because those are positions that require them to use their backs a lot, or their knees and their ankles a lot. So that's why I didn't want Fairley. But yeah, so I do believe there was some truth in that rumor. I think the Saints really, because they're in the mindset right now of we're going to take shots at quarterbacks and see who sticks. No matter what they say about the replacement was in the building, I really think they are still looking for a quarterback. I mean, Aaron Rodgers is out there.
Oh, please, God, no, don't even. Oh, no.
He is saying, I'll never. Well, I don't think if the Packers are going to trade him, they're not going to trade him to an NFC team. They will trade him to an AFC team.
I would rather have Shane Falco as my quarterback than Aaron Rodgers. I would
Uncle
rather have
Rico.
Uncle Rico as my
yeah.
quarterback than Aaron Rodgers. I don't want to be associated to that cocky little self-absorbed prick in any way, shape, form, or fashion, except for somebody pulling my ankle out of his ass.
How you really feel about that guy? Yeah,
Tom Brady is now number 2 behind Aaron Rodgers.
oh God.
You know,
You know,
I got a little bit of enjoyment out of the. I sat and thought about it the other night when we were here watching the draft.
I didn't
Green
want
Bay,
Marcus Samuel either.
Green Bay kind of sent a message to Aaron Rodgers. Oh, they have to take a playmaker for Aaron Rodgers, and the Packers just said, "Hey, Aaron, teams are not allowing themselves to be dictated to by players anymore. Green Bay's not doing it. Houston's not doing it. Houston showed Deshaun Watson, hey, you want to play ball? Got something for you. And look where he is now.
Well, he's about to go play for the longest yard at the rate he's going. Yeah, he's going to be the next quarterback out there looking for Burt Reynolds to coach his team.
Yeah.
Well, the late Burt Reynolds to coach his team.
But you know, you never heard anything about these character questions until he challenged the employer. 10 years ago, that didn't happen. Quarterback says, hey, I mean, you go back with Green Bay. You go back, Aaron Rodgers didn't like Mike McCarthy coaching anymore. What happened?
Yeah, well, no, I got you. Well, but look at Mike McCarthy in Dallas right now, too. So, I mean, I get it. I'm not – I do –
Normally, I side with players just as a given rule. I don't in this situation. You don't sign a contract in good faith and then try to leverage them because you're supposed to be good.
Yeah.
You are. That's one thing that I take great offense to. Someone believing and coming across in such a way that they are bigger than the organization.
The funny thing about Aaron Rodgers is he is in the exact same position that Brett Favre was in when Aaron was drafted.
And
you know, the way Favre treated Rodgers was he didn't help him at all. He ignored him. And that's why the Packers pushed him out, because they're ready to turn it over to Rodgers. And then
everybody thinks that you got a backup quarterback and your time is coming to an end. Oh, they're going to learn from Aaron Rodgers ain't going to help nobody take his job.
No.
That's just common sense.
I just what really disappointed me about Rodgers, what really made me mad at Rodgers was the end of that NFC Championship game where he did not run for the touchdown. And at times the play calling against Tampa's defense was idiotic. I thought they had more opportunities to beat that team and they didn't do it. It felt like they were throwing that game.
Exactly.
That's how I felt watching that game, that they were taking a dive.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm not a conspiracy nut, although I do think that the officials called the NFC Championship game in last year and 2018 in a way, keep it close, but we kind of would like to see, from a television standpoint, we kind of would prefer to see the Rams in that Super Bowl, because we want that, you know, the Los Angeles team to get a lot of fans and support so we can keep a team in LA. And I felt like that pass interference call after the shit that Tampa was doing out there to Green Bay's receivers, that pass interference call they threw on third friggin' down, the last shot the Packers really had, they call that pass interference call. No, I'm sorry, the third down against the Bucks. The last shot Tampa had before they had to punt the ball to Green Bay, giving one more shot to win the game, and they call that pass interference call on third down. That was when I felt like, oh yeah, this is what they wanted. They're going to get what they wanted. Tom Brady gets to go to another Super Bowl, this time in the NFC.
Yeah, Tom Brady gets to go to a Super Bowl without Bill Belichick. That's the only thing they had to talk about all damn year long.
Right. And Aaron Rodgers going to the Super Bowl just wasn't that kind of story.
Well, it's okay because he, in about week 8 or 9, he was anointed as the MVP. So
yeah, once Russell Wilson started to fade, that's when Aaron Rodgers became the MVP. I get it. So I get the hatred. I get the hatred. They did call it a bad Super Bowl. I didn't even watch it, honestly. Once I saw the Chiefs weren't just going to blow them out, which is what I wanted to see.
Yeah,
I turned it off, and it's easy to turn off the Super Bowl. I mean, people are like, "How can you not watch the Super Bowl?" Easy, it really is. I didn't watch the Rams Super Bowl against the Patriots.
Nope.
I only watched about the middle of the third quarter on of the Falcons Super Bowl when the Falcons started to lose. I watched that point of the game. But it's easy to turn that shit off. I don't have to watch a Super Bowl.
If it brings you more frustration and anger than it does enjoyment, there really is no point to watch it.
I never saw any. I saw in replay only. I didn't see any of the Eagles Patriots Super Bowl back in 2005. I was at Disney World. I was at Disney World all night. We were coming back. I only saw the highlights. I saw the shot of Donovan McNabb throwing up in the huddle. I saw that. I saw that in replay. But the rest of it, I'm like, I don't care, because I sat through the freaking blowouts of the 80s and the 90s. So, it's easy not to watch that game. I don't stress out like, oh my God, it's the last game of the season, last football game. No.
Anytime I watch a Super Bowl and my team isn't involved, there's a certain aspect that I'm cool with. I mean, you watch these guys that have worked so hard over the course of like 9 months just to have the opportunity to be on the field, be on one team that is one of the 2 last teams remaining. And there's something that always seemed so, I don't know, for lack of a better word, so pure about that. But like you say, nowadays, you're more oftentimes than not, you're left with this sense of something not being on the level. And
it feels like it's all scripted, because the Super Bowl has now become so much about entertainment. The halftime show is so important. I haven't watched a halftime show since I'm trying to remember.
Prince doing Purple Rain in the Rain.
Nope, I didn't see that.
I did. I watched The Who.
Yeah, I watched a little bit of The Who. I was talking most of the time to my family.
Probably my favorite one was the one Aerosmith did.
See, I never even saw that. I don't know which Super Bowl that was.
That was the Super Bowl between Kerry Collins' Giants and the Ravens.
Oh, okay. That was in 2001 then.
Yeah. I think that would probably be my favorite halftime show.
I want to say it was either Michael Jackson or Diana Ross was the last halftime show I watched. And even then I was like, this is too much. This is way too much. This is way, 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 way too much.
The problem that I have with them is they're doing this quote unquote for entertainment value, and then I'm not going to call any names, and I'm not going to be partisan here, but all that I will say is when you have to resort to taking a sporting event and turning it into a political statement. I'm done with you.
Yeah, I'm not into that either. I just, the halftime show, the kickoff show, the
Pregame.
the pregame, the 6 hours of pregame, the commercials. It's like all that stuff. And you're supposed to have a football game. You're supposed to watch in between all this stuff, and it's just that it doesn't appeal to me. I really enjoy. I've rewatched old Super Bowls on TV, on YouTube. I watched Super Bowl 10. I rewatched Super Bowl 11, Super Bowl 5, Super Bowl 7. You watch those, and Super Bowl 3. It's kind of boring football, some of it, because of the way the game was played back then.
Yeah.
But just the lack of the omnipresence of the media and the commercialization of it. It's like that was a football game you watched that just happened to be for a championship. Today, it's like it's an entertainment thing that you watch.
Sensory overload.
That in between all this entertainment, somebody's playing football. That's how it feels to watch these games.
Yeah.
So if I'm not emotionally invested in whatever team is playing, I just can't. I can't watch it. And honestly, every halftime show, I think I'll flip over to. I used to flip over to NFL Network, or I'll put on somebody that's talking about the game, what's going on in the first half. That's what I want to see at halftime. I don't give a damn about the musical acts, and I don't give a damn about costumes and all kinds of other shit. I take that back. I did see a halftime show in 2004. I saw because I was at a party. And I saw the wardrobe malfunction. So that was the last halftime show I saw.
Funny that she released an album like 2 days later, huh?
Yeah, well, and the wardrobe malfunction, I didn't even notice. I mean, it happens because he ripped her top, and then the lights go off. So I don't know. I was like, what the hell was that? I was just like, I didn't see anything. It was like I saw more boobage staring at scrambled Playboy channel on cable TV than I think I saw at a halftime show. That's how it felt. I mean, it was like, what was that? Was that what I thought it was? I might be mistaken, to quote Jerry Seinfeld. I might be mistaken, but I think I saw a nipple. I mean, it's that kind of thing. So anyway,
okay, we got sidetracked.
We got sidetracked big time, but that's kind of the draft has become that way too. We're going back to the draft. The draft is more entertainment than it is actual football stuff anymore.
Yeah, you and I were talking after the show last week, and you said, "Oh, you can message me after we make our pick. Should be about 9:30."
Mm-hmm.
Do you remember what time it was when we actually picked?
Yeah, it was 10:15, something like that.
Yeah, 10:22.
Yeah, because it was because the first round didn't end till 11 o'clock.
Yeah, and we have to have the Goodell walk across 100 yards of stage. Then we have to meet this person who's going to announce. When did we start doing that in the first round? That's supposed to be second and third round stuff.
Well, yeah, they're pushing it now into the first round. But yeah, it used to be the commissioner announced the first round picks. Then you had old Gene Washington, or you had some former player who's now working for the NFL office, do the second and third round. And then it's become former players. It's become, and then I start looking at players. I'm going, oh man, they're old. The Isley brothers. I'm like, oh man, I just watched the Rod Stewart video not long ago from 40 years ago now. This Old Heart of Mine we did with the Isley brothers. Now, and they were young in the video. And I'm going, yeah, that was the late 80s. So, yeah, that's almost 40 years ago now. I forgot. These two old men come out. So, yeah. Oh, yeah, Chad. Under the Dome's now PG-13. So, yeah, I mean, it's become a show. It's taken forever. I mean, I'm old enough to remember when we had the first 3 rounds on Saturday and then rounds 4 through 7 on Sunday. And that's the way it used to be. And it was 15 minutes between picks in the first round. So the first round lasted a long time. Now it's 10 minutes. And yeah, it's all showbiz, and it just feels like it keeps getting more and more showbiz related. Sean's acting like he's in a Batman episode from 1966 with Adam West. Was here.
Trying to find something.
You bong.
No. I know where that is.
Okay.
I mean, what?
All right, so we talked a little bit about the 3rd round pick, the cornerback. I said off the air, he was a guy that was recruited that would have been probably considered a 1st round pick, but he had a good, but he needed more development in 2019, and then he opted out in 2020. So that's why he fell to the 3rd round, because he's got the physical gifts, but his game is not there yet. And I agree with you. I think in the long run, he's going to be a good player for us, but I'm worried that we're going to need a guy right now, because PJ Williams and P-Rob are not the guys you want playing on the outside. And I don't want Chauncey Gardner-Johnson out there either. I think that
I would feel better about him than I would either of those other 2 guys, actually.
I think he's more of an inside kind of cornerback. I think they need to bring a guy in, a veteran in, and it's any veteran but Richard Sherman, because
he's used up.
Richard Sherman's got that Champ Bailey stink about him.
Yes. Agreed.
He is going to be, he's that kind of guy who I felt like should have retired 2 years ago after the 2019 season. His body's breaking down and he cannot stay healthy. And I think bring him in, he's going to come out, he's going to play, he's going to look like the Richard Sherman that we thought we saw back in Seattle. Then he's going to get an ankle injury or a leg injury, and he's going to miss out of the 17 games. If he makes it past the final cut down, out of the 17 games, he may show up in 3-4 games.
Maybe.
I just think he's done. Oh, hey, we got somebody from Brazil. Welcome.
Awesome. Welcome.
Unfortunately, I don't speak Portuguese, so I speak just enough Spanish to get me arrested.
Yes.
And that was after 4 years of high school and 2 years of college, and I still don't speak a word of it. So let's go ahead to the other controversial pick of the day. The Saints pick a quarterback in the 4th round. They pick Ian Book, the quarterback from Notre Dame. What was your reaction to Ian Book? I know what my son's reaction was, but what was yours?
To be honest, I didn't have a reaction. I just looked at it as exactly what I feel like it is, a project. You're going to see if you can get anything out of it. If you're not, you only put a 4th rounder into it.
Yeah. Well,
but those people that think that we just drafted the next Joe Montana, no, I'm afraid I don't see that.
He is the winningest quarterback in Notre Dame history, and that's including Theismann, Montana, Rick Meyer. That's a lot of guys.
Yeah.
So
Rice.
Who's that?
What was his? Was it Tony Rice?
Now you got.
He was the quarterback when Tim Brown was there, I think.
Let's see. think you might be right.
I can't remember. I'm getting too damn old, man.
Oh no, but you got me. I was, because I was going through the Notre Dame, Jimmy Clausen, Brady Quinn. We're not going to talk about him. Whenever
How is he as a quarterback? Yeah, he's a damn good commentator.
You're right, Tony Rice. Man, you were good.
Yeah, I think he was the quarterback at Notre Dame when they played that game against Florida State when they had Warwick Dunn and the kid that won the Heisman and never went to the NFL. He played in the NBA. I can't remember his name.
Charlie Ward. Charlie Ward.
Yeah, Charlie Ward. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think when they faced off in that epic game, Rice was the quarterback for Notre Dame, I think.
Well, I forgot about Steve Berline. Steve Berline was there. Blair Keel. God, I remember that dude. Oh, man. Terry Hanratty, who preceded Joe Theismann. Yeah, I mean, Daryl LaMonica. I forgot Daryl LaMonica was there too. Wow. So Daryl LaMonica couldn't read zone defense. He was good at man to man. That's why he was a mad bomber.
But I make light of it. But I will say this: that him being able to say that he's the winningest quarterback in that program's history, that's a statement.
I mean, this is the school that claims they invented the forward pass.
Of all the guys that were available at that point in time, I can't say that there's any one of the other guys that I would have favored over Book.
And that's the thing. And this is how I felt about Book. The thing about the Saints are going to be looking for quarterbacks every year. And the thing about Book is you had Kyle Trask, who people were glad the Saints didn't take. Kellen Mond, who I was glad the Saints didn't take. And Ian Book. That was pretty much the grouping right there.
Yeah, that was the second tier.
Yes, because I thought Houston really reached for Davis Mills out of Stanford. That was just a horrible draft pick. I mean, if you're going to take a quarterback, I get it. You don't know what's going to happen with Deshaun Watson, but I would have just left that alone for now. Go ahead and take my ass kicking. And next year, just try and pick in the top 10 or top 5 and get your quarterback of the future next year. Don't waste your time with a high draft pick with a guy like this when you got so many needs and you had so few draft picks.
Yeah.
So, in that group, Peyton really liked Book. I know that. One of the things that Peyton said about Book was that, or it was attributed to him that, Book reminds him of him, Peyton of Peyton. And Peyton addressed that comment. He says, "No, I wouldn't have drafted me." So I get that. I thought that Book has got, and every quarterback's going to get compared this way, so I'm really hesitant to use this phrase, but Book's got a lot of Drew Brees' intangibles. And what I mean by that is he's a hard worker. He is a leader. He inspires his teammates. His teammates really feed off of him and like him. But he is a project.
Yeah.
And if Winston wins the job like we expect him to, and Taysom Hill is going to do the Taysom Hill stuff.
Yeah.
Book makes sense as a cheap backup to Winston. A guy who can come in, finish a game off for you. If Winston gets hurt, before you have to make a decision whether to start Hill, you don't have to change your whole game plan now because Winston's out and now Hill's in. And how are you going to run your offense now without Hill being the wild card, the Swiss Army knife. So that's why I think Book makes sense from that regard. Book needs to improve his accuracy. He needs to improve his consistency. But I like the way he moves. I like his poise. I like his character. I like a lot of things about him. He's not going to be a quarterback of the future. Not yet. He's got a lot of things he's got to do to become a starting quarterback in the NFL.
Yeah. I don't look at him as the savior or the future. Right now, he's just going to have to make the team.
Exactly.
Now, that's not to say that he can't work his way from that, because you've seen that before. I mean, guys like Tom Brady, Kurt Warner, you've seen guys take even worse starting positions and turn them into something that made a career. I won't knock Ian Book at all. I'm kind of anxious to see what we can get out of him, but at the same time, I don't. I really see him as a project. Period.
He is. He's got to get stronger. He's got to be in an NFL conditioning program. He's got to learn the offense, but most importantly, he's got to work on his mechanics, throwing out of the pocket. Ironically, he throws better on the run than he does out of the pocket, and just improve his. I'm not worried about his arm strength. I've said this 1,000 times. I'll keep saying it. Arm strength is one of the most overrated aspects of the quarterback.
Yes, I agree.
Accuracy and consistency of delivery is far, far, far more important than arm strength. Jamarcus Russell threw that ball sitting on his ass out of a stadium, but he couldn't hit the broadside of a barn if you stood him a foot away from the barn. I mean, just, he could throw the ball through it, like they used to say about Bobby Douglas. He could throw a football. He threw a football so hard he could throw a football through the barn, but he couldn't hit the barn. So, and that's the thing. There's a lot of strong arm quarterbacks who have failed, and a lot of so-called weak arm quarterbacks who will become extremely successful in the NFL because it's about timing and it's about accuracy.
Yes.
Everybody loves to see the Patrick Mahomes and the Dan Marinos, and even Jeff George when he would, when he would release that ball, even in slow motion, his arm is a blur. I mean, because that's how much speed and torque, and John Elway and Joe Namath would, they played the game. John Elway liked to play the game where you stand 30 yards back and Elway's throwing the ball at you as hard as he can, and you catch it. Then you got to take a step forward, as he's still humming that ball at you. And the guy's talking about, Shannon Sharp showing his fingers all bent and twisted from, Elway ripping them apart. And Don Maynard talks about all the points of the football. He would have all of his arms and his body from catching these passes from Namath. But what made Breeze so successful is because he threw a catchable ball. It was a softball. You could catch that in your hands. And, receivers liked that because it allowed you to snatch the ball out the air because it was so accurate. He could fit it wherever, it needed to be. So that's where Book needs to get better. All right. So the last two picks the Saints took, they took an offensive tackle from Kentucky. I like this pick only from the standpoint of, this is kind of the theme I thought of this draft. They took depth in this draft. And we don't like hearing that because, and I said it right before the show last week that the Saints needed to get 2 starters and 2 backup players out of this draft. It's debatable if they got 2 starters. They may have just 1 starter, and we don't even know if he's going to start on opening day. But in the Saints' mindset, they lost because of the salary cap and the COVID-related stuff. They lost all their veteran depth. So they looked at this draft as a chance to replenish that depth with cheap players. So I think, you lost Nick Easton, but you brought in this Kentucky tackle who can play guard. He can play every position but center, right and left tackle, right and left guard. That's what the Saints want. That's the kind of player they need. Okay. And the same with this receiver they got from South Alabama. Now, I felt, and I think you and I kind of talked about this too, I felt that they really missed an opportunity to draft a receiver, a number 2 receiver.
Yeah.
They don't have that. And they let a lot of talent go by that they should have picked up.
I agree.
And didn't. What are your thoughts then? Where can the Saints go? Because I don't like the idea of Michael Thomas, Traquan Smith, Galloway, and Deontay Harris, Taysom Hill. This is your receiving core.
Yeah. You got Michael Thomas, which is could be considered league-wide a benchmark. But the drop-off from there, I would say probably the most talent that you have would either be Galloway, which really impressed me last year, or Deontay Harris. And you're going to be limited on Deontay Harris because that's your return guy as well.
Yeah. And he's small.
Yeah.
I felt that Deontay Harris going down in that in the playoff game against the Buccaneers hurt just as much as the fumble by Cook. Because they had no answer for Harris. None. They could not. They could not match up with him anywhere. Every time Harris touched the ball, he was burning them.
Yes.
So, I think that was. So if you're going to rely on Harris to be your, Tyreek Hill kind of guy, I think that's just a recipe for disaster again.
Yeah,
so
and if you take that gamble and you lose, look at everything that you lose. That's almost the same concept as if you put Taysom Hill at quarterback and he runs that read option and he gets hurt. What have you lost?
Yeah. And I thought, we've talked about that. I don't want to rehash that game, but Taysom Hill being hurt and Murray, Latavius Murray being hurt in that game as well. So I that receiver, and I was just looking him up to try and find him. He wasn't even a receiver. He's more of a Ty Montgomery kind of guy. He was a running back kind of receiver over there at South Alabama. So, because I'm like, dude, you telling me that Mike Detillier does not even have this guy in his book? He didn't. And it's nowhere in here. Yeah, which I was shocked at. But
South Alabama is not exactly a football mecca.
No, it's not. And
I think they've only had a program for like 2 or 3 seasons, maybe. I could be wrong about that.
They've had it longer than that because I remember USA. I've seen UL has played USA before. So my thing though is they said he played with 7 different quarterbacks at 1 year last year. So how do you judge a guy like that based on that kind of tape?
Yeah.
I just feel like. And it bothers me that the Saints didn't try and get a receiver in the draft and then didn't sign any undrafted free agent receivers, that they feel good about what they got. And I just don't think that's a good thing. Now you're looking at, I looked at the free agent market, and the free agent market's not even better. It's kind of like,
any free agent of note has already been picked up.
Well, you're looking at old guys, the Golden Tates, that players like that. The I want to pull this list up real quick just to give you an idea what kind of players are left. Now they did sign a tight end who is going to replace Josh Hill, I think.
You know, he
Josh
is a behemoth.
Yeah, 6'7", and he killed some poor guy. He got a running start on a block on this guy, and he killed him. I mean, it wasn't fair. I mean, that guy got knocked out of the video clip.
Tokyo lost again.
Yeah. Yes. So, here we go. It took a little while because this particular site's got 1,000 friggin' ads on its page. I'm sorry, not ads, video clips. So everything's got to get pushed down a little bit. But I wanted to go through a couple of names I saw out there. Antonio Brown has been signed by the Bucks.
Yep.
D.D. Westbrook, 7 years old, coming off a torn ACL. You look at Josh Gordon, queue up. Go ahead and queue up. Yeah, queue up Eric Clapton. Alshon Jeffrey, another injury, guy.
Yeah.
That's restricted.
Any of the guys that are left are not going to be a gamble that you really legitimately feel good about taking.
Yeah, Laquan Treadwell, the first round bust. Marvin Hall from the Browns. Farrah Cooper, the late Des Bryant, Tavon Austin, Benny Fowler, Marquise Lee. I mean, you're really scraping the bottom of the barrel. So
yeah, and all these guys were guys that teams fell all over themselves for to take in the first and second rounds.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, it's really, that's probably my biggest concern right now. Is I just don't feel good at all about the receiving core. And here you got a quarterback coming in who's not very good, not very accurate. He can throw for a lot of yards, but he's not going to have a strong receiving core he's going to throw to. You're looking at basically his offense is going to go again through Michael Thomas and
Alvin Kamara.
With a little of Trotman thrown in, a little of Callaway thrown in, a little bit of Murray, Ty Montgomery. This is not going to be a really good passing attack. And you got a quarterback who wants to throw the ball all over the field. So, and then when you couple that with a defense that's going to be younger and less experienced, it really makes me nervous. So that's probably my biggest disappointment. Take away from the draft is we never did address the receiver position properly. And there were two guys. I was like the whole time I'm watching the draft, I'm like, oh man, we got to get this guy. We got to get this guy. Grimes from Florida. I was watching him. I don't think he went till the 7th round. I liked him a lot. There was one other one on there I saw. I was even, looking at Sage Surratt from Wake Forest because I'm like, dude, we got to get somebody. He's not a speedster, but we got to get somebody.
I want to believe that someone offensive-minded as Sean Payton is able to see something in a Kawan Baker that everybody else missed. But a 7th round draft pick, that's even more of a project than an Ian Book. Just gonna have to call it what it is.
I know. I was surprised by that too. Calvin Dylan Moses didn't get drafted. That was a shock to me. The other surprise for me was the Cowboys didn't pick up the option year on Van Der Esch. They took 2 linebackers. Now, granted, Van Der Esch the past couple of years has had a lot of injury problems, but I think
Sean Lee 2.0.
That's what they're looking at him as, is Sean Lee. They've already lived through this with Sean Lee. But here's the other thing. You know who that defensive coordinator is? The human thumb from Atlanta. Quinn.
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 No, I didn't realize that.
Yeah, so he's going to turn that defense into the Falcons defense, the Seattle defense, but it's really the Falcons defense with a bunch of fast, undersized players. They went for 2 linebackers this past year. So, the Cowboys defense is going to change a lot. I would love to get Van Der Esch away from the Cowboys.
Sure. I would have graded him out as the steal of that draft, and never played 11-man football till he got to the NFL.
Yeah. But I don't know. He's going to play.
Excuse me. I'm sorry. Until he got to Boise State.
Yeah, the blue.
I got ahead. Yeah, the Smurf turf.
Dallas, I think, drafted 2 linebackers. They drafted 2 of them. So, and both of them fit the small, fast linebackers. One was Jabril Cox, but they're going for those small, quick linebackers that they like to have. I think they're going to turn the former Falcons safety Neal into a linebacker too. That was one of the things I read. So, I think that they're worried about Van Der Esch's injury. One guys, and I'm like, dude, he is the kind of linebacker that would do well with this team. So that's a position at least I feel like we can get better at. Quan Alexander looked pretty good running. I don't know what his cutting ability is going to be like. Yeah, I know his neck is the problem. His neck is the issue. Yeah, he is trying to find a new Bobby Wagner, but I think Van Der Esch, if Van Der Esch can get a season off where he can kind of fully recover, I think he may end up being. They need to bring back the shoulder pads to the neck with the little horseshoe neck pad, or what Brian Cox used to wear, little pad in the back of the head. I want to bring back those guys. Yeah, Micah Parsons and Jabril Cox. I think Bond has a good chance of growing up, but I really like getting the idea of getting Van Der Esch. Hey, I hate him too. I do. That's why I'm laughing that they got Dan Quinn now to run their defense, because if anybody can run a defense to the ground, make a defense even worse than the worst ranked defense in the NFL last year, it's Dan Quinn. I mean, but the receiving core, I don't feel good about. I think we're going to have to make a trade or hope that somebody good gets cut.
I'm tired of having to depend on someone to step up in a for them superhuman way. I would like to have a little bit of assurance going in that we have what we need.
You don't have Drew Brees anymore who can make undrafted free agents look good. You just don't have that. Yeah, I get you can scheme guys open, but I don't think you have the quarterback with the accuracy and the decision-making process, the rapid decision-making process of a Drew Brees. I think that's the problem, and that's why I'm really nervous about this receiving core. And that was probably my biggest. That's why I can only give them a C for a draft grade, because I understand the depth you took, but I don't like that you miss drafting some impact players who need to play this year.
You left opportunities on the board, I believe.
For depth, and I think that's where it's gonna hurt us this year.
Yeah,
I really do. All right, I know you got to go, Sean. I'm looking at you.
Yeah, making the donuts.
Yeah. Thanks, you guys, for joining us. And I'll get rid of this so you can see our Twitter handles. I'm, at there, right here. Alan Ulrich at 79 Saints, and Sean is Sean Williams at Drew's dad.
3721.
3721. Yes.
You can find us on Facebook at the Under the Dome podcast page.
Absolutely. And I'm going to post a breakdown of my, of the draft, my thoughts, a lot of things I said tonight in written form, so you can hold it against me in 3 years when the when the actual draft grade should be offered. In the meantime, one last thing, and then we really got to go. Effective yesterday at 4:00, you can now officially sign guys without it impacting your compensatory picks. That is one of the reasons why the Saints didn't do very much. I think you'll see some guys getting signed over the next couple of weeks now. To try and bolster the team. We'll see. I expect a veteran corner and probably a veteran receiver. And we'll talk about the undrafted free agents next time too. In the meantime, thank you guys for joining us. We'll see you next time on Under the Dome. Good night, everybody.